Hey YouTube, it's Ryan from Offsides Designs, and let me show you around my shop. So I want to formally show you around my shop and show you how I have things set up, especially for this small space. I'm going to hit on a couple of the tools that are worth it and other tools that I regret and totally would not recommend buying. And I have a huge announcement later, but let's get on to the video. So this is my side of the garage, and I've turned it into a complete wood shop. And yes, my snow-covered car in the winter is the biggest display of my dedication to the craft. And scraping off ice in the winter is not fun, but this makes it totally worth it. I want to start with the starting point of every one of my projects, which is my workbench. And it doubles as a work surface as well as an outfeed table for my table saw. This is actually the first place where I put it. And what I really like about it is it's centralized. So it's in the middle and I can work around it. And honestly, I haven't gotten frustrated enough to move it, so that's why it's still here. And I really like it. But having a table like this, or just a surface, which is stable and pretty big, is a must in my opinion. I started with sawhorses and a piece of plywood, and that just didn't cut it. Having a surface like this where you can put tools, you can put projects, all sorts of stuff is a must. Now let me tell you about what this thing is made out of. It's actually a big office door that I got from some junk store. It's doubled as a desk in the past, but I brought it out here as I wanted a hard surface, a flat surface, and big, and it's worked really, really well. And so this thing is sitting on top of some filing cabinets that have some tools in them. So I have my Festool Domino over here and my sander, as well as some router stuff. And then on that, in that leg, I have some lathe tools as well as some table saw attachments. So I would totally recommend, and now you kind of see a lot of projects on YouTube or wherever where these woodworkers have this really, really nice workbench. And while that's super cool, I don't feel the need to have a really, really nice workbench. I think something that's super functional is definitely key. And it's also nice to be able to have it be sacrificial, because you see there are a bunch of cuts on here, and there's glue marks, and there's an outline of the chair that I'm making right now on it. So, and I'm not worried about that. So I kind of like to have it be something that you can just bang on and beat up. So let's move on to the next part. Let's walk on over to the other half of my woodworking island, if you will, and that's my saw stop. So this is a cabinet saw, table saw that I got pretty recently, and I know it's an expensive tool, and there's going to be a point where it's not possible to get this, but my recommendation is this should be the first tool that you save up for and you splurge on, because not only are the safety features of this table saw definitely worth it, it's a no-brainer, but the performance is unmatched. I had a job site contractor saw before this and would be muscling through some wood to get cuts, and this thing cuts it like butter. It's insane. So highly recommend this thing. Accessories with this thing, you can get a bunch of different blades. Jonathan Katz Moses has a great video demonstrating what the different blades do, but what I have is a combo blade, which is up here, my ripping blade, and then actually inside of my saw right now is my crosscut blade. Now, if I'm gonna have to pick one of them, it's definitely the combo blade, but between the ripping blade and the crosscut blade, I think the crosscut blade is worth it. It makes the crosscut cuts very, very smooth and nice. Whereas the ripping blade, not a big difference there, but if you can get both, or if you can get all three of them, I would recommend that. Another thing that I have for this is a dado stack. And a dado stack I would definitely recommend over the crosscut blades and the ripping blade. The dado it's really nice when you're making dado joinery. It speeds the process up significantly and makes things a little bit easier and more repeatable. So definitely recommend that as well. So the table saw, it's a big star of my videos and projects. It's essential to everything. And speaking of my videos, I just wrapped up a couple of projects, the dining table and an activity set. And I'm proud to announce that I'm releasing plans for both of those projects. Now, essentially what these plans are going to be are nice polished up versions of the notes that I use to build the projects. And today they're going to be available on my Patreon if you sign up as a member. So please hop on over there if you're curious about what my notes look like or if you're looking for your next build. And shout out to Ryan E for being my first Patreon member. Truly a day one. Now let's get back to the tour. Let's talk about the milling process. I start with my joiner here, which is a Grizzly 8-inch helical blade jointer. And this thing is an absolute dream. It's a pleasure to use, especially compared to my old joiner, which was a Craftsman, pretty lightweight 6-inch joiner. The thing about this is, I can set it and forget it. And I know that everything's gonna work really well. And when you have everything polished up and waxed up, it's just so smooth and powerful. I definitely recommend this if you're going to be milling your own wood. So the next step in the milling process is to plane. And I have this DeWalt DW735 13-inch thickness planer. And this thing is an absolute beast. It's a perfect entry to intermediate level planer. It gets the job done. A couple things to note about it are it's very, very loud. So earmuffs definitely recommended. And it does tend to trip my circuit quite often. So yeah, I've warned you. But this thing is on an old filing cabinet from an old desk, which is on top of a 4-wheel dolly. I'm not mentioning this to kind of display on how weird and janky this setup is, but more so to point out that wheels are very important, especially for a small shop, because I can pull this thing out, I can move the car, push everything over here, and now I have a lot more space over here to be working. So if you have a small shop, I definitely recommend getting some wheels on your tools so you can move them around. Just gives you a lot more flexibility. Speaking of the milling process, I want to show you a sneaky good accessory to have. Now, these roller stands are perfect for a one-man shop because you can open these babies up and set them on either side of your joiner or your planer. And essentially what these are doing is they're acting as additional sets of hands, so your piece of wood is nice and flat on the tool surface. The milling process, of course, creates a ton of dust, and that's why I have this Jet Cyclone dust collection system that is absolutely essential to a wood shop and keeping it nice and clean. And now, I feel like I've been super positive with all of my tools, so let me throw you some negativity. Remember when I talked about wheels and how important those are? Well, the wheels on this thing are not good. So there you go. There's some negativity. Not an ad for all of this stuff, but this thing, it's just super nice for keeping your shop and your garage clean, because for most people, garage is where life happens. Other life is going in on here, and I don't feel like it's fair to have dust everywhere and on whatever's on the shelves and stuff. So this is super critical to keeping your shop clean as well as keeping good health. And speaking of that, I have an air filter up there, which is a Grizzly. Now, I touched on that in my safety video, so go check that out if you are interested in that. But essentially for that, it's a nice to have. I wouldn't say it's even close to as essential as a proper dust collection. Another thing for dust is I have a shop vac, and this is very, very useful, especially for like handheld devices like a sander or a Festool Domino or my Shaper Origin. I connect that to this thing right here, and it will collect everything really, really nicely. I think this more qualifies as a dust extractor if you're looking online, but this has been really, really nice to have in the shop. And this is a day one. I had this as my primary dust collection before I got this, but as far as like dust collection for the table saw, joiner, bandsaw, planer, especially the planer. This thing is not going to do the job. You'll need one of these, and definitely recommend that. Next up is my lathe, and this is more or less a specialty item. You don't necessarily need this for a wood shop, but it is really nice to have, and it allows you to do some things that you can't do with other tools. And this was definitely a shop goal for me. It's something that I really, really wanted, and I don't use it too often, but like I mentioned, it's kind of a splurge. It's nice to have. Let's talk about kind of positioning. This thing is super heavy. It's not going to move. It has to be against this wall because of an outlet over there. So it is kind of nice to have some things that are stationary that you're moving around, and then most of the other stuff on wheels. So this is one of the things that's not on wheels. It's going to stay here, and we've made it work because of the other tools having wheels. So we got my shaper down here, and if you've watched my channel, you probably are sick of the shaper, so all I'm going to leave it at is this thing is totally awesome. One of the most important things about furniture making is being able to communicate your craftsmanship with photos and videos. And that's why I have this big white wall here. I take photos against this wall for my website as well as my Instagram and YouTube. Now, having a wall like this is super important, and it's kind of hard to find unless you're willing to spend money on renting out a studio or getting professional photos. But if you're going to do it yourself, I would recommend trying to find a blank wall, or I have some paper that I've used in the past as well. But finding your set, if you will, that you can put your pieces on and get high quality photos out of is very important. So here are a couple quick hits on things that I'd recommend to buy and things that I regret buying. I feel like when you're starting out your wood shop, you don't have all of the funds in the world, so you're not buying the big tools. You're more looking at cheap, smaller tools in order to get the job done. And I would recommend you to save up for the big meat and potatoes tool instead of trying to buy a bunch of these cheaper tools. At least for me, that definitely wasn't the route. And as you can see, there are a bunch of tools that I bought early on that I don't use anymore, and I didn't really use when I had a smaller shop. But let's start with the positives. These are some things that I really, really would recommend. First is like an accurate speed square. Now this is super nice to check squareness as well as mark a perpendicular line on a piece of wood. So definitely recommend that. And slightly adjacent is a marking tool. This has a bunch of, I think it goes into the 64ths, so you can mark things. It has holes on here, so you put your pencil in and then you run it on the piece and it will mark it. Super, super nice. Next up, circular saw. I use this for breaking down lumber into smaller chunks, the components that I use for my projects. And then lastly, a router table is super duper nice. It saves a ton of time when you have to do a lot of router work. So previously, before I had a router table, I'd have to clamp the piece down, run my router, and then move the clamps, and then run the router again in order to do that. And then you flip it to the other side. Lots of time for something pretty simple. Whereas this thing solves that problem, where I can just run the piece through, all done. And I put a aftermarket piece of plywood on top just to extend the bed. So a little bit of a modification there, as well as I added this router lift in order to make moving the router head up and down much faster and quicker. So those are the things that I would recommend. Now, to the negatives, the things that I'd never use and do not recommend. First up, a battery-powered sander. You're kidding yourself if you buy a battery-powered sander because you need to sand way longer. And this does not work. It doesn't last for long enough that you need to sand. So get a wired one or a pneumatic one. Next up, this thing. I literally hate this thing, and I hate it so much. It's ruined many of my projects. What it is, it's like a hand planer, and so it it's just brutal. I hate that thing. So that thing, this thing I got on Facebook Marketplace. It's a dovetail jig. It's a Lee dovetail jig. It's supposed to be really, really nice. I got it for a really, really good deal. I thought I was going to make a ton of boxes and drawers out of it, and have really, really nice dovetails. And I just didn't have the patience to set it up. I've never used it. I've made box joints, I've made dovetails by hand, on the table saw with a jig, and with my shaper origin. I've done it many, many times, many, many different methods, and I've never used this thing. So maybe it's on me, but I don't recommend this. It's very complicated to get it all set up. And then last, oh, actually not last, is this bench top bandsaw. This thing, I think I got this. This was the wrong tool for the job that I wanted it to do. I got it to make some spoons and move it around, but this blade is just so flimsy, and it's just so underpowered, and it's small. It's just a waste of money. So that thing, and then the other thing that I think is kind of a waste of money is a miter saw. If you have a table saw, if you have a track saw, if you have a circular saw, you can do everything that you need to. I just don't use that. I either use my table saw or a circular saw. So I'm not a fan of that. I know people like to break down their wood, but this thing is just so much easier. I bring it over here, and I don't need a big, long, dedicated spot for my miter saw. I can just move this over here, cut it up rough, and then if I need to do any dimensional stuff, I'll do it on the table saw. So, quick hits, kinda, of things that I regret and I think are worth buying. Alright, so that's Offsides Designs HQ. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. And if you're interested in plans, go check out my Patreon page. I gotta get back to work, so I'll catch you in the next one.